So in this video, we're exploring the Cuptimo immersion brewer. Welcome, my name is Patrick Roth and this is Coffee with April. For this episode, we're having a look at, for us, a completely new brewer. I believe it's quite new on the market as well. It's a brewer called Cuptimo, produced in the south of Germany. And it's kind of a full immersion brewer with a little bit of a smart solution to something that's kind of always been an issue or a challenge with previous kind of full immersion brewers. So basically what's interesting here is that they've come up with a way to make sure that the drawdown is a little bit more efficient. And when you look at traditional full immersion brewers, Clever Dripper, let's say Hario Switch, there's a lot of different versions of them. The challenge is always the drawdown. It just takes a lot of time, or it's a bit inconsistent, very often going from kind of fast to slower depending on how much of the liquid you drained. And this brewer is kind of the solution for that. So we're gonna just kind of test it, or we have been testing it, and we want to share our current kind of ideal brew method with it. And then we're gonna continue to work with this in a few other videos in the future because it's quite a versatile brewer. We feel there's a lot we can do, there's a lot we can test. So we just want to give you a little bit of an insight, and then we kind of take it from there, right? So basically the structure of this is quite easy. It's a silicone base, obviously a porcelain or ceramic top. Again, made in Germany, not sure about the silicone base. And then there's this little kind of AeroPress looking paper filter thing, which is kind of interesting, right? So what we do is we just push that in the bottom, we rinse the filter very much like a classic brewer. Then what's interesting is what happens after, right? So we're gonna start the brew and I'm gonna walk you through. What we're doing here is kind of a classic cupping brewing, or cupping ratio. So we're actually using a 1:18 ratio. So a little bit more or a lot more water than what we used to, because we're realizing that we're getting quite high strength in these brews relatively quickly, most likely due to the drawdown. Now, naturally, there's a lot of different ways to brew with this. There's a lot of different ways to pour water and so on as well, right? We're trying to actually keep the agitation a little bit lower when we're pouring the water, just because we have quite a lot of aggressive drawdown when that drawdown is supposed to start. So we're dosing the coffee, coarsely ground coffee, so coarser than what we would do on the April brewer. We're dosing a total of 13 grams. The water temperature sits at 95 degrees Celsius, and I'm basically just kind of get going all the way up to 234. And the key thing here is just making sure that all of that coffee becomes evenly wet. So that's basically what I'm looking at. Obviously, you can use this with a more traditional kind of pouring kettle that will have you pour a lot faster, but I don't really see the need for that. So I'm finishing my pour within 30 seconds. And basically just looking at the brewer now, there's no kind of natural drawdown, or it's a very, very slow one. And that's kind of the whole point, because what we're doing now is that we're giving the brewer some time, and then we're gonna kind of create a suction using this little pump that's gonna make sure that drawdown goes a lot faster. So step one, I'm actually gonna lift it off the scale, because we're advised to press it down a little bit when we try to kind of build up that pressure. We're waiting here now, we're over 1 minute, and we're gonna go up to a little bit longer than what we have done before, just to see if we can push that strength up. I'm putting in the pump in the brewer. We're gonna let this go all the way to 2 minutes. Then I'm gonna put a little bit of pressure on the brewer from the top. That's why I don't wanna do that on the scale, to mess up the scale. And then we're gonna start pumping. And basically what happens is that the second I start pumping, we're gonna start having a release. So then we're gonna see the liquid go through the filter, right? And you can actually do this quite fast. Naturally, there's different ways. Some people break the crust, create more turbulence. I think with the drawdown as quick as this, we have to be mindful of creating too much turbulence. It's just gonna cause a very strong cup of coffee that is maybe not so tasty. So we're going up on 2 minutes. I'm pushing it down with my hand. And when we are at 2 minutes, which we are now, I'm starting to pump. And you basically see directly from at least second pump that it starts going down. And then you can basically see and feel when you're building up the pressure here, how quick that drawdown is. So after a few pumps, I basically don't have to do much more because it's just gonna draw down by itself. And what's interesting with this brewer is that when that drawdown really kicks in, which it does now, I think around pump number 5, then it actually pulls the coffee down with it, which I assume is part of the design, the kind of inner gloss of the ceramics as well. And now we basically have all the water drawn down. So we have a drawdown here of basically 30, 40 seconds. Total brew time of 2 minutes and 50, which for any kind of full immersion brewer is quite extraordinary. You have a little bit of a release valve here that I'm gonna press just to make sure that I can lift off the brewer without any issues. And then it's basically done. That's how easy it is. So we're gonna take a quick little break here. As always, we're gonna make sure to double test this to make sure that it tastes the way we want to. Do a little bit of measurements and then come back to you guys with a little bit of a summary. So we're back with a little bit of insight in what we're getting here in terms of, taste of coffee. So first of all, we actually tried quite a few different brews, and we have the same kind of experience using this brewer over and over again. It's a little bit different every time, right? So there's like a few things in the drawdown that isn't super consistent. It's just hard to predict, let's say, how much you need to pump and how long time that will take. It is a quicker drawdown, which we really appreciate, and we think that's a good thing. But it's a little bit of a challenge in terms of consistency. That's really the biggest obstacle here with the brewer, which could be very fine when you brew like one of them, but if you want to brew more of them, it might be a little bit of a challenge. 2, we see on the coffee bed that it really comes out very different every single time you brew. So again, it's hard to say if there's a consistency here in how the water goes through. On our most recent brews now, we definitely had some kind of larger holes in the coffee bed that would indicate some kind of very clear channeling, for example. Then we also noticed that it so much depends on what you do with the actual coffee bed. Right? So do you break the crust or don't you? Do you have a lot of agitation or don't you? So if you don't break the crust, what's going to happen that a lot of the water will go through a very small amount of the coffee, and you end up with these really thin kind of unstructured cups, but a faster drawdown, right? But if you then break the crust, wait a little bit, let all those coffee grounds go down, then you for sure end up with a slightly slower drawdown and a much more coffee-like cup of coffee, right? So simply stronger cup, which makes a lot of sense because more of the water has uniformly been through a larger amount of the coffee. So this is a really fun little gadget, and we're always fans of trying new things. We're still not really able to find a cup profile that we think is really tasty, but we know a lot of you have tried it as well, so we're super interested in hearing what you think about it. We're in conversations with the person that made this brewer. We bought this brewer from them, and that means we're gonna gift it through Patreon in some way in the future, right? But we're still not quite ready with it. We want to continue to explore. We're going to continue to kind of share that journey with you guys as well. One thing I can say that is a little bit of a challenge with this brewer is cleaning it. But cleaning up a cupping format in general is quite difficult. But on top of this, you have this paper filter in the bottom as well. So it's not a very clean, simple process, which makes it very hard for example, bar use or like competition, stuff like that. It's just not a very clean process. So there's definitely a few things to think about. That being said, it's a fun brewer, and the idea of being able to control that drawdown is really interesting. And I'm sure if we spend a lot more time with this brewer, we're going to be able to come up with some really good stuff. But that will be for a video in the future. This was just kind of an introduction. We wanted to share this is what we're up to. We bought this fun new little gadget. We're super happy to play around with it, and we'll continue to do so as well. If you have any pointers, any tips on this, please comment below. Maybe you have similar other brewers that you tried that we don't know about. We would love to hear about them as well. Obviously, we're taking this conversation over to Patreon to make sure to give you guys a little bit more of an in-depth conversation about it, but we do a few more videos as well. With that, we want to thank you for watching, and we want to thank Cuptimo for creating a really fun little brewer. And again, I'm sure over time we can kind of get on top, making those cups of coffee really tasty as well. So thank you and have a great day. We want to give a special thank you to all of our Patreon supporters. It's because of you that we are able to continue to make these videos. And we want you all to feel free to always come with suggestions and ideas on the content that you want to see, because we are doing this for you and because of you. Thank you from all of us here at April.